Hey, what's going on, everyone? First, I would like to say thank you for clicking on this video and joining me on this journey. If you haven't already liked and subscribed to the channel, go ahead and click that subscribe button right below and hit that notification bell so that you can get notified every time I release a new video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about what I've learned in 8 years of marriage. So today, my husband and I, we are celebrating 8 years of marriage, and as my dear sister told me, that 8 years is it's a number of new beginnings, and I truly believe that this year for us is a year of new beginnings. And I'm just gonna share with you, what I've learned through these 8 years, and hopefully this will encourage those who may be thinking about marriage, those who may be married, or those who may not be married but would like to get married, or those who may have had a divorce. But definitely leave a comment if you find some value to this, and definitely add to the list for those who may be watching. Definitely feel free to add comments to maybe what you guys have learned in your marriage. All right, so the first thing I learned is that marriage is a journey, and it's not necessarily a destination. Like, you don't just get married and that's it, right? So you get married and you're on this journey of becoming. And this journey doesn't stop, right? Because the longer you stay married, I will say that the person that you were before you got married is not the person that you're going to be when you get married, because marriage is actually supposed to, it should be a process of you becoming a better person, right? It's supposed to be a constant evolving process, and it's who you have to become in order to stay married. So just stick into that becoming stage, and two people have to be committed to that journey of becoming who your spouse needs to be. And I believe it was Dr. Miles Monroe who gave this example, and he talked about the relationship that we have with our car. And although we may like to drink Kool-Aid or smoothies, or for some people pop, we know that we can't give that to our car. In order for it to run, we have to give our car gasoline. And so we wouldn't drink gasoline, but because we know that that's what our car needs, although we don't take that in, we make sure that our car gets what it needs to run efficiently. And if we don't give the car the gasoline, then it's going to be on the side of the road. So it's definitely important to know what your spouse needs, but also understand yourself well enough to know what you need, so that there's a common understanding of what your relationship needs in order for it to run. Because if it doesn't get what it needs, then you're gonna your marriage is gonna kind of like be that car on the side of the road, waiting for AAA to come and put gas in it, or waiting for someone to come along to tow it back to where it should be, or to get recalled, right? So definitely understanding what your spouse needs and who your spouse needs you to be has nothing to do with who you like to be or who you want to be. It has to do with you becoming who you have to be in order to stay married, because that's what your spouse needs. And so I know with being married, there comes times where frustration happens, and in those moments of frustration, you really have to think that frustration is just the fruit of our unwillingness to change. And so many times we may fight that whole process of us needing to change because we don't want to change, and we become frustrated. And naturally, we are creatures of habit. So what we wanted to do, or who the person we were before marriage, has to make some adjustments, while you're in marriage. And I'm a big, science enthusiast, right? So I know one of Newton's laws of motion is that a force in motion will stay in constant motion unless a force is acted upon it. And so that kind of explains how we're creatures of habit, because we constantly move, like this until something, changes or shifts our mindset, or shifts our way of thinking. And so marriage will, play that role of being that force where you may have to change directions. And basically, the root of not wanting to change, it stems from selfishness, right? So you think about yourself, you're not really thinking about, what the other person wants in that moment. And that's where the frustration comes. Like, I don't want to do it, but at the same time, if you think about the definition of love, the opposite of love is not necessarily hate, but it's truly selfishness. And when two people commit to being unselfishly, when two people commit to being unselfishly committed to that journey of becoming who you have to be in order to stay married, then you're going to have two people who will stay married and make those adjustments to make their marriage work. And so the next idea that comes to mind that I learned through marriage is teamwork makes the dream work. And I remember growing up, my dad would tell us, if, like, let's say, for example, someone left their bowl on the table or their plate on the table, and naturally you say, who left their bowl or who left their, plate on the table, right? Because you want them to come, clean up after themselves. And one day my dad, came into the kitchen after I had asked that question. And he says to me, just pick it up. Just, if you see that it needs to be done, just pick it up and, put it in the sink. And what I learned in that moment was that sometimes in situations where your spouse may be in a situation where you want to question, like, you did this or you did that, it's important for us to cover, for our spouse and play the role that we're responsible for playing, and only control what you have the power to control, and be the problem solver in those situations. And rather than, in that situation, waiting for somebody to come pick up their plate or their bowl, just pick it up and take care of it. Kind of like seeing, litter on the floor, just pick it up. If something needs to be done, just do it. Take the initiative and do it. And so in your spouse, don't expect strengths in areas where your spouse may be weak in, because it may take some time for them to develop in those areas. But if you're strong in that area, then that's the role that you may have to play. And so maximize on each other's strengths and don't focus so much on their weaknesses, because you want to work together during those times where you may have to, cover for your spouse, or your spouse may be helping you with something, you always want to maximize their strengths. For example, my husband, he's really good at, technology, right? I'm not the technology person. I can do it, but he has a gift of, manipulating, different things and cropping things and, all the designs and tech and stuff. But I know that's not my lane, but I also know that I can ask him questions and he can assist me even with these, YouTube videos. He taught me how to do the whole cover thing, etc. And working with kids and education, like, that's my lane. So we work together, and he's able to work on what my strengths are, and I'm able to work from what his strengths are. And then hopefully you're in a relationship or you marry somebody who's mature enough to not manipulate that situation or situations where they manipulate that privilege of having that opportunity of, joining you on this journey of marriage, of becoming. So that's another important thing, is just making sure that mentally you're ready for marriage, because it's gonna challenge you in ways that it's not for the faint, right? Marriage is not for the faint. It's a lot of hard work, and on the other side of that hard work, or that work that you really don't want to do, that's where you want to be. So definitely be committed to doing the hard work, having those hard conversations, because those are going to be needed. And I say all this not to say that, we don't have challenges in our marriages, in our marriage. And for those of you who are married, you know that challenge does come in marriage. But the real question is, what are you going to do when those challenges arise? Are you going to crush and crumble, or are you going to, rise above it? And so another question you want to ask yourself is, when these challenges do arise, is it from being frustrated because there's an unwillingness to change? Who do I have to become in this moment in order to adjust in some way? Because it's going to take, compromising. It's going to take some negotiation in some way. The other question you can ask is, how can I become better, in this situation? Do I need to communicate more? What role do I play, and how can I play it better to set the team up for success? And I kind of see marriage, I think of like the football team, right? Or any sports team. So let's take football, for example. The quarterback, he can't take the team to a Super Bowl, trying to play the position of a wide receiver. He has to play his part, and he has to play it well enough so that he can, increase his own skill. And so if he's, focused on what the wide receiver is doing rather than what he's doing, then the team, it ain't gonna go to the Super Bowl, right? It's not gonna make it, because other team members are depending upon that quarterback to play his role and to play it to the best of his ability, because every position that you are in your marriage, it may change over time, but when you have to play that position, you want to play that position to the best of your ability and find ways to increase your skill in that area, because your team is dependent on you. Your team, your children, your grandchildren, your children's children's children, they're all dependent on you to play that role to the best of your responsibility, and to be responsible for what you have to do when those challenging times come, because that's when it really matters. Not in the good times, but in those challenging moments is the turning points. Like, in your marriage. Those are the turning points. So just focus on, one, becoming a better individual and be an asset to the team of marriage. And before any issue arises, and I learned this from my uncle and aunt from Georgia. Shout out to Uncle Dave and Aunt Michelle. Before I got married, we talked with them, and one of the things that I always remember is they said one of the reasons that marriages end in divorce is for financial reasons. So before Markel and I, before we got married, he said that, well, let me just tell you what my uncle said. They said to decide how you're going to handle situations before you handle them. And when you have to handle them, you're, responding rather than reacting to the situations. And one of the things they told us is that one of the top reasons why marriages end in divorce is for financial reasons. And so one of the things that Raquel and I, we committed to was we would never argue about, finances, right? Just from that fact that we received from my aunt and uncle. That's just one example of making decisions before decisions have to be made, or before a problem of finances arise. We committed to never letting finances be a part of a disagreement. So, and we've never ever had an argument over money, because we decided in the beginning of marriage that we didn't want that. So 8 years, 2 kids. We have beautiful children, healthy children. We're grateful for them, 3 kids. And hopefully this encourages those of you who are married, those of you who want to get married, and just stick to that journey of becoming, even if you're single, become the best person that you can become for yourself. Because remember, you are the piece to the puzzle when you decide to get married. If you choose not to get married, you're still a piece to the puzzle in this world. So hope that encourages someone, and just commit to becoming. If I can say one last thing, just commit to becoming. So remember, you have what it takes. Be great and accelerate. Until next time, peace.